And yes, we are shifting our focus now to get you the details of a big story, a big visit. Remember, this is the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu who's going to be touching down on the Indian soil at around 1:30 this afternoon. But this visit is significant in more ways than one. Not just the two leaders, when it is the Indian Prime Minister and him who've been, sharing a fantastic chemistry of late, but also they are looking at a lot of economic ties, a lot of agreements that are set to be signed. And later also that big road show that is planned in the state of Gujarat. We're getting you details ahead of that and much more. First up, this is our colleague Aditya in conversation with the Israeli ambassador, putting out what he believes could be the low-hanging fruits and the deliverables post this visit.
How important is this particular visit? We've been waiting for last almost 2 years for this visit to happen. What are the key points? Because, defense and security is one of the key issues. But with that spike deal going, off way, there were doubts that, there would be some element of mystery in the relationship. But do you think that this relationship and this particular visit will help bridge those gaps and enhance the diplomatic cooperation and strategic cooperation between the two nations?
I frankly do not think that one incident or one story can mar or can influence the very strong relationship that exists between our nations. And we have seen it in so many instances in the past when our relations were a little more under the radar or off the screen. Nowadays our relations are out in the open for many years. And while defining ourselves as strategic partnership, the area of defense is only one. We are not only building bridges, we are strengthening the channels. We are strengthening the number of projects, the richness of the areas that are covered by both our nations, both our people and both our governments. And visits, as we all know, are a very important instrument in fostering stronger ties. And yes, you mentioned the presidential visits and the prime ministerial visit in Israel, where Prime Minister Netanyahu welcomed Prime Minister Modi and said, "We have been waiting for you for so many years." I think he mentioned 70 years we've been waiting for you. I think it shows that there is something very strong that is happening between our people, not only between our governments. And we are here to reflect that. We are here to strengthen it, and we are here to touch upon the areas that are important to both countries. India and Israel have very similar values, identical challenges, and we can have similar solutions. And we are working very hard on that. The very big business delegation that will be joining Prime Minister Modi is a reflection of that. Governmental talks that will be taking place on any issue that is on our joint table, and the joint table is very, very rich, will reflect that. And yes, we will not be looking only at the last 25 years, we will be looking at the future, a very bright and important and strong future for both our countries.
Also, when I was in Jerusalem at your Prime Minister's office, I interviewed, Ambassador Mark Regev, who was the advisor at that time of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And one thing that, striking was that he said that Jews and Indians have one thing in common. They have suffered a lot. They have suffered, Islamist radical terrorism from both sides and for decades and decades together. When Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visits here, do you think counter-terrorism, security cooperation, apart from defense cooperation, will also be something that will be looked into, and there could be a joint briefing where they will both condemn this Islamist radical terrorism? Because you have seen the cross-border terrorism coming in from Pakistan and, terrorists like Hafiz Saeed.
3.5 years ago, both countries signed an agreement on homeland security and counterterrorism. And what we are doing now, the practitioners and the various agencies that are dealing with it, is to implement that. And I think that two countries that have suffered from terrorism are there also to cooperate in this field, also in tackling this plague of this era. And this is one more important element of our relationship. Since it is a huge challenge, it can be met with uniting against terrorism. And this is what is done on a daily basis, and I'm sure it will be on the agenda of our prime ministers.
One quick question, I know you're getting late before I sum it up, and you can be very brief, is that recently we've seen on the question of terror also, Palestinian envoy speaking from Pakistan and, on Hafiz Saeed, and how, Palestine, rebuked him and took him back. India was very bitter about it, although that vote happened. And today you made a very important statement, which would perhaps bridge the strong gaps between the nations, is that the vote will not matter at all. The relationship is important between the two nations. What do you say about it?
I'm not sure I said that vote does not matter at all. Vote matters a lot. Yeah. I think that what is happening in the international community is important, and we definitely would like all countries to vote when a vote comes, and when a vote tackles a sensitive issue, to vote with us. What I did mention is that I cannot take internationalization of conflicts or of peace process into an importance that it does not deserve. Trying to help us or any conflict being solved through the international community is not helpful and is not constructive. And I'm sure that when I talk to an Indian about it, an Indian or any Indian will identify with our policy and our point of view, because it also can influence others.